Okay, and we're live. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 16th, 2024 meeting of the Institutional Risk and Compliance Committee of the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees. The meeting is being held in person with committee members participating remotely. At this time, Board Secretary Michelle Curry will conduct a roll call attendance to determine if a quorum is present. Please clearly respond present via WebEx or present in person when your name is called.
Robbie Luna,
Present via WebEx.
Matthew Lenz,
Present via WebEx.
Joseph Formicola,
Present via WebEx.
David Moderano,
Present via WebEx.
Reva Goyal, David Caprio, Michael Gray,
Present.
in person.
Person.
Thank you. Mark Parlange.
Present via WebEx.
We have a quorum. And also special guest, invited guest, Vice Chair Armin Sabatoni is present. Thank you.
All right, we have a quorum. I'll call the meeting in order. Reminder to all members, for the benefit of our audience and the note taker, please clearly identify yourself whenever you comment, make a motion, or second to a motion. Participants using WebEx are required to keep their cameras on as remote members, and all persons present at the meeting location must be clearly audible and visible to each other. This time, I would like to acknowledge that the University of Rhode Island occupies the traditional stomping ground of the Narragansett Nation and Niantic people. Are there any proposed amendments to the published agenda? There being none, the first order of business is approval of the minutes. May I have a motion that the committee approve the minutes of the June 17th, 2024 meeting?
Joe
David
Formicola,
Moderano,
so
so
moved.
moved.
Matt Lenz.
David Moderano, second.
Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion to approve the minutes on June 17th, 2024 committee meeting is approved. The next order of business is agenda item 2, discussion item. And I'll have, let's see here, Mike Johns present this discussion item.
Do you mind if I jump in, Chair Luna, just quickly before Mike gets started? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to just point out to the committee, so this agenda item is to review our external audit report, and we do have Mike Johns and Brian Crowley here from CLA, our external auditors. It's a slight change this year. So the last 2 years in November or October, we've had a joint Finance and Facilities IRCC meeting where we talked about the audit and the financial statements. We have 2 separate meetings this year. So this is really a review from our auditor's perspective of the audit. And then the Finance and Facilities Committee will review and approve the audited financial statements and recommend approval to the board. So I just wanted to let people know that it's a slightly different approach than in prior years. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike to give his presentation.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I am Mike Johns. I'm a principal with CLA, and I'm joined by Brian Crawley, who's a manager with CLA. And if I can share my screen, we have a brief presentation to review with everyone. Although, here we go. So what are we going to talk about today? We're required to meet with this group at the end of our financial statement audit to review what we did, what we're engaged to do, the results of those procedures, give a little bit of a status update on your compliance audit, which is the single audit, and just talk about a potpourri of just minor matters at the end, regulatory issues, new accounting standards. So what was CLA engaged to do? Management's responsible for preparing the financial statements and having the controls and procedures in place to ensure that those financial statements are fairly stated. We come in after they close the books and records and perform tests of the books and records and the financial statements so we can express an opinion on management's work. The deliverables in this engagement are our audit report, obviously. If we note any deficiencies in the internal control structure in the accounting department or policies and procedures, we're required to report them to this group. We have various required communications that you receive in a formal letter that we'll briefly touch on this morning. And as part of the single audit, we also will issue a report of compliance and internal controls over compliance, and that is currently ongoing. I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who's going to go over the audit process. Brian?
Thanks, Mike. So as we go through the audit procedures, it's a risk-based approach, meaning we're not testing every transaction. We're looking at areas with slightly more risk or areas where we can test controls of compliance in the single audit and also in the regular financial statement audit. So during the test and controls, we looked at laws, regulations, and any kind of compliance attributes related to those. We test journal entries, payroll, general disbursements to get comfort with the controls of the university are in place and operating effectively. So we rotate our tests, the controls, and during those procedures, if there's any kind of recommendations, we provide that to management. During the test and controls, there are no issues or any kind of things to bring to your attention. As far as the audit, there are estimates included in the financials, and some of those significant estimates relate to pension and OPEB, which are derived from actuarially determined estimates. So those are included in your financials, and there's other estimates related to allowances for receivables. Some other significant areas, investments. We do testing of investments, cash, and all those transactions as well. Each year we incorporate an unpredictable test, so it's not the same audit procedures each year. As I said, we rotate tests of internal controls, and also we do unpredictable tests each year. This year we did vendor analysis, and there are no issues with that test. As far as other significant areas, revenue recognition, we obtain comfort with the revenue through test of grants, contributions, revenue, other detail throughout the year, and reasonableness test as well. Expenses, classifications are tested as we test disbursements to make sure all those statements are properly tested. And some other, not all-inclusive, but some other significant areas that are part of the test include debt, capital assets, and accrued liabilities, and some of those other actually determined pension OPEB amounts I noted previously. So if we go to the next slide here. So the biggest takeaway from most of the presentation is that our opinion on the financial statements is a clean, unmodified opinion. So that's this similar report that you received in previous years. So basically that means that there's no modifications or enhancements to that report. So it's a clean, unmodified opinion, which is exactly what you're looking for. And as far as other levels of reporting, if there were any other material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, something that would come up during the test, we would have made you aware previous to this meeting, but as in previous years, there are no issues to report as either material weakness or significant deficiency. So that's another positive takeaway, similar to previous years. As far as our responsibility as auditors, so we work with management, but our responsibility is to report to governance if there are any issues or significant things that should be brought to your attention through the course of the audit. So as I know before, there are no material weaknesses or deficiencies to note. There are no changes in the scope. So basically the procedures we started to plan in the beginning phases were the same exact procedures we completed throughout the audit. So if there are any changes in the scope, we would have brought that to your attention. Unlike previous years, we had a lighter year as far as new pronouncements. So in previous years with leases, subitas, and some of those other enhancements, there are no changes to accounting policies. So there's no significant changes in the notes, some minor tweaks to some of the verbiage on some of the notes. The disclosures are clear and consistent, meaning that there's no management bias noted from any of those disclosures, which is part of our procedures we complete. As far as difficulties, there's no difficulties with management, any disagreements, or any of their findings to report. And also, we didn't have any consultation from anyone outside CLA. So all the services were provided internally by CLA employees. Estimates, I noted some of the key estimates previously. Those relate to some of those actually determined assumptions for pension, OPEB, and also allowance related to your receivables. So those are some of the more significant estimates, and we just make those aware that those are estimates by management, and there are no bias noted in those estimates. As far as any other required communications, there are no adjustments, so basically, or uncorrected amounts. So basically, the books and records provided by management were clean, and those were the reports that are part of your financial statements. As far as the conclusion procedure, a management representation letter was received at the end of the procedures, detailing events subsequent to year end all the way through the issue date of the financial statements.
Thank you, Brian. So for the single audit, which is the federal compliance audit, that is ongoing. I would say we're about 85, 90% done at this point. In a single audit, you audit what are major federal programs. The major federal program, as determined by the state this year, was the research and development cluster. So we're working our way through that and testing all those research and development grants that the university obtains. And currently, we don't have any matters to report. Testing is almost complete, but still ongoing. And that gets submitted to the state and included as part of the state's submission to the federal government for the single audit. Some items coming down the pipeline. We're still continuing to see the Department of Education put out more requirements in terms of compliance and what needs to be tested as part of the student financial aid audit when that's selected as a major program. We're hearing that they're may require more tests as we move into 2025 in items that generally you would think fall outside of the student financial aid department, such as reporting security matters, foreign transactions. So the regulatory environment continues to become more and more complex. They also issued a final statement this year that if certain events occur at an institution of higher education, they're required to be reported within 60 days to the Department of Education. That includes things like untimely debt service payments, failure to make a payroll on time, those types of items, and that is under their financial responsibility rules and just a required reporting requirement. So we just mention it during these meetings to make sure that management of the university has that list and has someone monitoring in case there is a reportable event that needs to go to the Department of Education. Looking ahead to next year, there is a new standard on compensated absences. So the liabilities that need to be recorded for unused sick time or vacation time. The GASB is redefining how that estimate should be made. So it will require a review of the internal policies and procedures of how that time is earned and looking at the year-end calculation to make sure it's in accordance with the new standard. Way down the pike in 3 years, there's a new financial reporting standard. One of the significant changes there is a new set of rules required for management's discussion and analysis that hopefully will make it more understandable to readers of the financial statements. This slide was included in your presentation, but it's not really applicable because the financial statements were issued in order to meet the state deadline. As a just a reminder, we hold a virtual conference every year online, and it's not just an accounting update. I think only one of the 8 or so topics is on accounting. It's various topics in higher education. So we just included this QR code in your presentation in case you're interested in any of the topics and joining. Want to thank everyone for having us here this morning. We're more than happy to answer any questions. In summary, it was a very clean audit. Management was prepared and ready for us when we scheduled field work. We didn't have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses noted in the internal control structure. I should point out, though, we don't express an opinion on internal controls. That only happens in a public company or Sarbanes-Oxley environment. And management was great to work with, no disagreements, providing audit requests timely. And the numbers we got at the beginning are the numbers you see in those final financial statements. So I want to take the opportunity to thank management for all their hard work. And we're more than happy to address any questions.
Any questions? So, there being no questions, I'll move to the next item, and that's the next order of business is agenda item 3, and that's executive to go into executive session. We've got 2 items that we'll be discussing in executive session. One is the annual report on litigation to include all federal, state, and administrative proceedings currently pending or that were resolved after June 30th, 2023, and potential anticipated litigation pursuant to RIGL 4246582. The second discussion item is regarding potential litigation pursuant to RIGL 4246582, specifically discussion of Rhode Island State Crime Laboratory. So may I have a motion that the committee convene into executive session pursuant to RIGL 4246582 for discussion regarding an annual report on litigation, including all federal, state, and administrative proceedings currently pending or that were resolved after June 30th, 2023, and potential and anticipated litigation, and RIGL 4246582 for discussion regarding potential litigation, specifically discussion of the Rhode Island State Crime Laboratory.
Matt Lentz, so moved.
David Monterano,
So-
second.
Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any
Yes.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved. The committee will now convene into executive session for the reasons specified. It's anticipated that the executive session will last approximately 40 minutes, after which the committee will reconvene in open session. The live stream will be paused during the executive session and will resume once the executive session is ended and the committee reconvenes in open session. For all those participating via WebEx, please confirm by saying yes that no other person is present and or able to hear the discussion at the remote location.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's for me. If you do not automatically move into the breakout session, join the session when prompted on your computer screen by clicking on the Join Now button. Attendees not participating in the executive session will be moved into the waiting room. Michelle, will you take us into executive session?
Yes, we're moving you in right now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
You guys done? Probably leave if
I
you
was
want.
going to ask, I was about to send you an email.
Yeah. I think so.
All right. Well, if we're asked about in the next session, just send me an email.
Please. Right now, you're live streaming with us, just so you know. We're moving people into executive session.
Okay.
Thanks. And we are now live.
All right, the committee is now convened into open session. The first order of business in open session is a motion to seal the executive session minutes. May I have a motion that the minutes of the committee's executive session be sealed?
Matt Lynn, so moved.
Is there a second to the motion? Most are muted. I'll ask for a motion, a second to the motion. If you could unmute yourselves, please.
So moved, Mike Gray.
Thank you.
Actually,
I think we need a different
we
second.
do. Sorry, we have to have a voting member. Mike,
That's right, I'm at.
sorry. Joe, I think
Joe Formicola, second.
you. Perfect.
Did that come through?
Yeah.
We heard you now.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next order of business is agenda item 4, an action item. And this is for the approval of amendments to the Institutional Risk and Compliance Committee calendar and recommendations to the URI Board of Trustees. I'll refer this to Abby Benson.
Great,
for an
thank you.
explanation of the agenda.
So you may recall that this committee normally reviews its charter and calendar in April for any potential changes and then approval in June. This is somewhat out of order because the university recently proposed to the governance committee some streamlining of the Board of Trustees committee meetings. And one of the recommendations was to reduce the IRCC meeting frequency from 5 meetings a year to 3 meetings. And so that was approved, and the changes to the calendar here reflect that recommendation. There are 2 items of note. We took the items on the calendar that were formerly in the April meeting and moved them to the January meeting. And then we also changed one item that we realized needed to be updated, which is that prior the IRCC calendar reflected an approval of the external audit and financial statements. As I mentioned earlier, that actually is under the Finance and Facilities Committee. So we changed the calendar to reflect a discussion as opposed to an approval. So now IRCC will meet in January, June, and November, I believe, just to make sure I get that right. Obviously, if there's an opportunity or a need to meet, otherwise, we can certainly have a special meeting if needed, but that's the recommendation going forward. So the request is that the committee vote to recommend approval of these changes. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think everyone's happy about less meetings. All right. Any questions or discussions? May I have a motion that the committee recommend that the Board of Trustees that the board approve amendments to the Institutional Risk and Compliance Committee calendar as recommended and presented in the enclosure?
Matt Lynn, so moved.
Joe Formicola, second.
Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous. The last item agenda is item 5, and that's to adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Joe Formicola, so moved.
Matt Lynn, seconded.
Ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any abstentions? The motion to adjourn is approved. The next meeting of the IRCC is tentatively scheduled for February of 2025. Thank you, everyone.